Man, what's going on? Fuck. I guess I don't really have much to say here. I just kind of want to get on and get some thoughts off my chest here. Um, Holy shit, living in LA right now. So the riots are about they're still a ways away from me. So they're not like right next door to me or anything. It's still quite a drive for me to Paramount, where most of this seems to be taking place. It's fucking wild, man, that this is where, I really view this as an invasion of my city by the Trump department or of my county, of my state. Sending in the National Guard illegally without the consent of the governor here, threatening to arrest the governor, and then sending Marines basically against American citizens. I don't know if that's ever happened. I know it's been 60 years since the National Guard was deployed illegally like this. I mean, we're just seeing what we always knew was going to happen, right? We're just seeing the fascism finally play out. We're seeing the fascists march through our streets. The ICE crackdowns are already inhumane, and it's a violation of someone's human rights, I feel, to round them up like they aren't human without due process. And against the will of the communities that you're invading. Trump talked about suspending the Constitution. He's broken so many laws in his litany of violating human rights and destroying checks and balances at his campaign for complete totalitarian control. I mean, this is only the next necessary step. I'm sure we're going to see this in other American cities as well, where the military and the police, the swords of fascism, are wielded by the fascists to oppress their people. This is something that I talked about a bit in the Kilmar video that we did a little while ago. I guess the reason I wanted to jump on here was just because I had a bit of a mix of emotions today. We live in dark times, and I feel like I'm desensitized to a lot of the stuff that happens, or, simply because we're expecting it to happen. We don't think it's going to affect us like it does, but this climate here of fear, this tyranny, this terrorism, these terrorists here in uniforms who are coming to enforce the illegal, monstrous policies of the Trump administration, the Trump regime, and to basically to take away people's First Amendment rights to assemble and to protest. It's a monstrous thing to witness, This is shit that happens in Russia, in North Korea, in China. This isn't something that should happen in Los Angeles. The way that the federal government maximizes its power, flexes its power, basically just abuses, takes control over state and local authorities to impose their will upon us living here. It's upsetting. It really is. Like the brutality of this, the military being used in such an egregious way, it's a lot to handle, especially because it's so close to home for me, I think. Last year, during, the main coverage of the genocide, when I was first really getting into it and researching what's going on in Palestine, in Gaza, I remember I had been so into like going over the data for that and going over for the statistics of that. And I'm not trying to equivocate here with what's going on in LA with what happened in Gaza, but there was a point where I was talking to one of my friends and just going over the statistics and going over the things that I had seen that day. And, like I'd done so many times before, sort of just going over everything and laying out my case and talking about the individual incidents at the time. And I remember I just broke down at a certain point because just on a human level, recounting that tragedy, it sort of bleeds through that barrier of you, internet research, and then actual person, right? Sometimes these human things, they bleed through that. And that was one of those moments where I wasn't expecting to, I guess I was just sort of overwhelmed by how I was feeling about the situation, even though it had been a complete, dystopian nightmare unraveling, seeing what was going on and how it was being handled by our government and by Israel. What my tax dollars were funding. It just kind of got to me on that day, and it still gets to me, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so outspoken on the subject. And I think this was another one of those days, right? Obviously, as far as I know, no one has been slaughtered in LA, right? There's no genocide in LA, but there is of sort people, an ethnic minority, being targeted, immigrants being targeted, people being rounded up in schools and on their jobs. It's completely monstrous. And while it's not the same as, Gaza, as this mass murder, I still know people who are undocumented. We still all have, living in this area. It's a very immigrant rich area, right? And not just Mexican immigrants or, immigrants from South America, but from all over the world. We have immigrants here. And these are people, these are human beings who deserve human rights, who deserve to be here and to live their lives and to contribute to the economy and to contribute to our society just as much as anybody else does. A lot of times immigrants are the neighbors that you want, the people you want in the community, because, they tend to be the safest, to say nothing of of how they benefit the economies and the businesses in the areas they live in. It tends to be safer to live among immigrant communities than just strictly American communities. I feel like I'm sort of rambling and talking in statistics and everything. It is kind of shocking to see, to me, like, you see the Waymos on fire and it's whatever. It's just vandalism. But to see the Nazis marching in full force through the streets, to firing on protesters for no reason. So this video here is a member, I think this is the LAPD. I don't know if this is the LAPD or the feds or whatever. But just this person here, you're going to see this guy here where the smoke is. I paused it here. This is a reporter talking who just gets fired on. And I'm sure most of you have already seen this. I just want to play it because it has to do a lot with the disgusting tyranny that I'm talking about. That's sort of like the fascism of this, just the terrorists pushing people around with their weapons, right? Who are defenseless, who are just witnessing the truth.
Out of LA.
So you can hear their shots and everything ringing out. Did you see that? So I want to, again, just play this here. I know most of you have seen this. This piece of shit, for no reason, looks at the reporter. No one's advancing on him. There's no threat to him. And he fires a non-lethal round at her and strikes her in the leg. So you're going to watch this piece of shit here assault this reporter here.
You just shot the fuck.
And then he says, you just fucking shot her for no reason, right? Just complete lawless monsters who are policing, quote unquote, our streets. The thugs are here. The Gestapo's here. ICE is bad enough. This is to strike terror into these democratic strongholds, into these democratic states and cities. These are the ways, this is how fascists assert themselves. They push you around. They make sure you're aware of the order of things, right? They try to intimidate people. They're fucking bullies. And you think about what's the solution to this. I don't want to talk for too long. This really is just me getting these thoughts out. I was at work all day. It's weird being at work, 45 minutes away from where all this is going on and getting updated and still having to do your normal workday stuff. LA is such a huge city. Even this, which isn't terribly far from me, seems like a whole world away because we're, but at the same time, it's not. It's strange, but you still have to go about your daily life and do your daily things. I still had to go to work today, and do the stuff I normally do, unfortunately. But just seeing all this and processing all this, and I got home exhausted from everything, and I just sat for a couple hours trying to think about my place in this and what I can do and what's happening and when it's going to stop and how it's going to stop. And I don't know, when Trump won, I remember thinking, well, at least I live in California, so we're not really going to have to deal with most of him being a piece of shit, When Republicans take office and start cutting things, Californians aren't usually the ones who suffer. Ironically, it's red state voters who suffer the most under Republicans, but it's ironically swing state voters who are more likely to suffer the consequences of a Republican administration than here in Cali or whatever. But This does affect us, right? So we already had the fires earlier this year, when Trump made us dump a bunch of water reserves, just totally waste them, dump them into the Central Valley for no fucking reason at all, just so that he can wave his dick around. This is the same thing that's happening. Just so Trump can get his moment, so he can instill his fear, so he can have his strongman part. He just does irreparable damage to us. And it's just to show, it's just a way that this evil, repugnant fascist does affect me. And he is in our face, right? He's constantly assaulting you. Constantly. Trump, Stephen Miller, the whole lot of them. That dipshit, inbred piece of shit Homan, the border tard, right? It's ridiculous. These people are monstrous. And I do hope, first, I hope there's change, right? And it seems futile because the people right now who should be acting Congress aren't. On both sides of the aisle, you have the Republicans who are completely and utterly complicit in Trump's coup, in Trump's monstrous fascism, in Trump sending the Marines into Los Angeles. And then you have Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who might as well be Republicans, who are the enemy also, who have failed to act, who have failed to put up any resistance at all. Pathetic, disgusting, treasonous pieces of shit. So you would hope that Congress would impeach him. You would hope that someone would invoke the 25th Amendment. You would hope that something would be done. But everyone who's supposed to do something is failing to do it. The court more or less rules on, has good rulings on this, and Trump disregards them like he did for so long with Kilmar and sending the people to El Salvador without due process. We don't have an enforcement mechanism right now. The people who should be stepping up are failing us. The military, whose job it is to protect this country, what they should be doing is they should be marching on the White House, right? Instead, they're marching in LA. They're being used against the citizens by the fascists, by the politicians who are just complete fucking monsters, who are doing this racist, xenophobic, totalitarian crackdown on our neighbors, on our countrymen, actually. And I don't care if someone wasn't born here. I don't care if they're here undocumented. If they choose to be here and if they contribute to society and if they respect everyone's rights and if they're just here to get along, to do good by themselves and by their communities, then they have every right to be here as much as any other American, and they have every right to enjoy full civil human rights and protections from tyranny, just like every American. It's disgusting that this is happening in the country. So I keep getting off tangent. I do hope that something changes, and something inevitably will change, right? That's the one thing we know about this world, about living. The one thing you can know for certain is that nothing remains unchanged in this world, right? Nothing in this life remains unchanged. And so it probably won't be Congress. I don't know what's going to happen. I know that just just resist this however you can. And if you can't be in the streets, be there in whatever capacity you can against the fascists. Speak out on whatever platform you have to whoever is in your life. If you can be in the streets, be in the streets. I don't want anyone to hurt themselves, right? To do an action that's going to destroy themselves or their future or take away their freedom. But at the same time, it's like anything does that. Peacefully protesting now can do that, right? And it's been that way for a long time. Look at the people protesting the genocide in Palestine, who were deported and who were silenced and who were threatened. This is just this regime's response to the First Amendment is to crush it and to crush your rights. But I do want to say that there is going to be an end to this at some point, and hopefully we all get to the other side of that. There is going to be a day when these people are not in power. It's going to happen. And when that happens, I want everyone to remember we need a Nuremberg trial in America. We need to disband ICE. We need to hold the agents who violated the law in carrying out these brutal and unconstitutional arrests. We need them held accountable. We need Stephen Miller, who flagrantly lies and disregards court orders, held accountable. It's obscene. These people, don't forget who was on which side of this and who did this and why they did it and how they did it and who aided them and who was an accessory to this. Don't forget that when this clears up, okay? I don't know, guys. These are dark times again. I'm not going to be super doomer about it. This is sort of like a therapy video where I just wanted to get on and rant for a bit because, oh my God, fuck. It's been a day, man. Let me tell you. It's been wild. I guess I would say take care of yourselves and of each other. And sometimes, we're in the second act here where things seem the darkest, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be forever. That's all I got to say, guys. Death to the fucking crown. That's it.